Yeah, so I'm going to be talking about change and how the industry has been changing over time and how we expect it to be changing in the future. And this is just our vision of change. But I think actually what we're going to be seeing over these next 2 days is that all of us are being affected by this change in the media industry. So there's a number of things that are affecting this change for us today. I mean, there's going to be things such as consumer habits, the technology that we're using, politics, and then new forms of entertainment such as esports. But for the next couple days, we're going to be talking a lot about multi-platform production, cloud and IP, how that's affecting change in the industry. I'll talk a little bit about multi-platform graphics, of course, augmented reality, which is what I always end up talking about. And we'll take a look at AI, and we have a few different talks on AI, how it's affecting the media industry this year and the coming future as well. So first off, let's take a look at how the media landscape has evolved. Content is needing to be published on many different platforms today, and broadcasters need to be able to reach their audiences on any platform. Now, most of this is happening through some form of online delivery, where they're sending their video content out there. But they also need to be able to go live, and they need to be able to engage their audiences on these different platforms so that they can have a two-way relationship with those audiences and keep them engaged. Now, in the past, the way the media worked was we had a lot of people producing content for just a single channel. And all of that is changing now, where you have a few people who are creating content for many, many channels. Now, we still have similar staff numbers that we had in the past, but all these different workflows and processes that people are putting together are now being forced to create a lot more content with the same or even less resources. The Columbia School of Journalism last year did a study on this to see what different channels were producing to. So here's actually their results for CNN. They looked at CNN and a lot of other channels over a 7-day period. And I've adjusted this a little bit so you can see that the channels they've published to the most are the largest to the small ones. So over 7 days, they published to 7,814 different posts, most of them on CNN.com, and they were retweeted, but also to their channels on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. But then the other thing that they did was they also did a lot of experimentation. They looked at all the other channels that are popping up on a day-to-day basis and tried publishing to those channels to see what would happen. Some channels stuck, some didn't. I have no idea what Kick is, but they published a few posts over there. And once they started publishing to these channels, they kept a few. So if you go back and look at where they're publishing today, you're going to find that they are now publishing a lot more than just 10 channels. And they're still experimenting, trying to find the new channels where audiences may be going today and tomorrow. So you've got to continually experiment. You've got to continually go and find out where the audience is, because it's a constantly shifting market. And once you find that audience, you then have to figure out, well, how am I going to make money off of it? Because in the end, that's the only reason we're creating content, is we need to be able to make money, and of course, you need to be able to make money so that you buy stuff from us. But that's neither here nor there. So, of course, there's the ideas of advertising during live streams on Facebook and YouTube, sponsoring videos, content behind paywalls, which has been working for the newspaper industry, promoting your properties, which is your websites, creating brand loyalty, which is extremely important, which I'll talk about a little bit later, and then selling services through engagement. But not only is it important to be able to publish through these different sources, you also need to be trusted on those sources, because we're also coming into a very interesting time in politics where we are having fake news being applied or being created to I don't know if that's fake or not. I don't think it is. But fake news has been coming in, and it is actually a real problem, but so is the idea that fake news is anything that we don't agree with. And so there is a siloing effect where we're only really experiencing news that we believe in and we trust. And even more worrisome is the idea of news avoidance, where people are just not going to news at all because they don't trust any news source. So how do you get these audiences back? Well, part of it is, of course, telling great stories. But you also have to tell those great stories on many, many different platforms and make sure that your branding is very clear. Because somebody is going to find one of your stories, really like that story, on some platform out there, and they need to know that it's you, so that when they move on to the next platform, they see your branding there and they remain loyal to your brand. In the end, though, it's all about trust. Trust is the new oil. It's that commodity that you have to have. If people don't trust you, they're not going to read your media. You're not going to watch your content. So make sure that you have content out there that they can trust. And of course, that is why we're here. This is why we create media. So I also want to talk about some of the other technology changes that are happening right now. And one of them is cloud production. So with multi-platform production, there is a lot you need to think about besides just getting your content out there. You also have to think about the hardware to support all of these new channels, the software to support all these new channels. In a standard live production, you do have a number of hardware sources that you're working with, such as you have your audio system, you have your vision mixer, your graphics system, you have your newsroom software. Now, today, most of these can be combined into some sort of software-based solution, which then opens up the possibility of turning it into a cloud-based solution. Now, there is a lot of public cloud options out there. We have AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft. And actually, Microsoft is here. They're going to be speaking later today to show you how they can help out doing media production. But you also need to be able to think about how you can use the hardware with the cloud-based systems. So hardware is still required for a lot of the more complex and heavy lifting for the media industry, for video productions and things like that. But using a hybrid approach, you can tie the two together, and that's a little bit more aggressive than I expected. There we go, that's more happy. So you can tie the two together, and you can have a hybrid approach of the cloud-based systems and hardware, which is going to give you maximum flexibility. Because the two together, the cloud-based, can help you take care of discrete tasks such as clip production and that kind of thing. Now, if you're doing any kind of live productions, cloud production can also help you out there as well, where of course, with the OB van, you have very limited space, so you can centralize a lot of production needs for those live productions, and then you can just use only the tools that you need for the live production on site and do everything else in a centralized way back in the broadcast unit. Now, of course, cloud production is also changing the way we're making money. Broadcasters will no longer have to spend a lot of money on massive hardware-based systems. Vizrt is going to have to change the model that we are using to sell you content, but we still want to continue selling you content, but it's going to be more of a pay-as-you-go model, a SaaS model. So this is going to allow you to be able to scale up your productions as needed. So if you have an area of a time of heavy loads, you can just add more resources from the cloud and buy it then. And when you're done, you just scale back down to your day-to-day resources. So this stretching and contracting future that we're looking at here is very nice, but you still need there needs to be a lot of work to be done before we can actually make this happen. Because you can't just throw any software up into the cloud and expect rainbows to come out of it or down of it. But if we're going to be taking a look at what we can do with the cloud, thinking about things such as being able to access resources anywhere in the world, we also have to look at what is involved in cloud production. You have the elastic GPUs, enabled virtual machines, and you need to have high bandwidth networks. And this was a major roadblock in the past for being able to do live video production. But that's changing, and it's just getting better and better. And pretty soon, software companies such as us will be able to, are going to start building our platforms so they work fantastically on the cloud. And this is going to allow us to really get in there and start doing elastic production for the future of media. I want to switch over and talk about graphics just a little bit here because this is the foundation of Vizrt as a graphics company. But instead of talking about graphics that you may have been experiencing in the past, we're going to look at it from a different angle altogether. So the thing is, most people experience graphics when they are dealing with media, not watching television, not playing video games. They're experiencing graphics on their telephone. They're experiencing graphics on a web browser. This is browser-based graphics. This is where we consume most of our media. Now, the good thing about this is web browsers are very capable graphics engines. You can do a lot with them with HTML5-based graphics engines. And so we need to think about what can we do to leverage that capability with the capability of the rendering engines that we have today and the workflows that we have today. Now, we can, of course, do some nice multi-platform production here so that we have always the greatest graphics a look and feel on whatever device that we're experiencing our content, but it needs to go beyond that, too. We need to be able to give the audience something new, some way to be able to interact with that content. We need to allow them to be able to maybe choose the way they want to see the graphics during a live sports production, or give them polls. And we also need to turn this into the journalist workflow so we can tie together the graphics that we have on the air with the graphics that you're experiencing on your mobile device, so everybody has the best workflow. And that's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a shift in technology on how we're delivering those graphics out to the audience, but it's something that we have to think about for the future. And then, of course, my baby, AR. I know Gerhard's here. He wanted to send me some new images to put in the presentation this morning that I couldn't quite squeeze in because we have some really awesome stuff coming up for IBC this year. But I'm not going to talk about that just yet because that's a little bit of a secret. So the thing about AR is it's something that broadcasters have been toying with for 20 years. I mean, Vizrt has been doing virtual sets in AR since our founding. But the audience is just now starting to catch up with this. The consumer market has been toying around with AR for a little bit with some hiccups here and there, such as Google Glass didn't really work. And to be fair, no matter how nice of a promotional image you have for these goggles, you're going to look ridiculous wearing these goggles walking around in public. Or well, you might enjoy that. I could see you fishing with these things on. But in the end, though, consumer market realized, wait a second, there is something else that we all have in our pocket. It's a cell phone. And that actually is a very nice platform for doing AR. And so you have things like IKEA's app that they are using to put furniture in your house, and Pokemon Go. There's one of our fine marketing people there enjoying Pokemon Go. And this is also, we have Apple now who is giving you the developer kit to be able to add AR very easily to new apps. So the consumer market is catching up. And AR has become a very accepted part of the consumer market. And here's some of the growth trends that are expected for the consumer market in augmented reality and virtual reality. So you can see that it's going to be added very quickly to a lot of the different platforms that we're experiencing on our phones. This means that the world of AR is ready for the media industry. So we can start taking these tools that we've been using for years and really start using them to tell stories. So the consumer world has now caught up with us. But actually, they've surpassed us. And one of the problems that we have now is it's still difficult to create AR on a day-to-day basis. I mean, a lot of you guys are doing a fantastic job, and so are you, Michael, but it's still not an easy task to build this AR content for every single show. And that's where we need to make a technology shift. We need to make AR just as easy to produce for the journalist and make it part of that journalist-driven workflow as lower thirds and full-screen graphics. And when we get to that point, and then adding in things such as photorealism and other storytelling tools to make it look really fantastic, then AR has come of age, where we can have this just as a simple graphic that we have on the screen that tells a story in a very easy way. And that's the end. That's what AR is really all about. It's just telling those stories, telling a complex story in a very easy-to-understand way that is also engaging to the audience. Poor guy. So one last thing I want here to talk about here is the idea of how artificial intelligence can affect the media industry. And I just want to take a look at a quick workflow here from working with the journalist and the tools that they work with on a day-to-day basis. And I stole this from Fadi, the journalist anyway. So right now, the journalist is still almost doing a traditional workflow where they're doing their research, they're doing their shooting, they're doing some of the editing together, and they have some basic tools to help them out. Now, AI is going to step in, and it's not going to replace the journalist. AI is here as another tool for the journalist to help them be able to tell these kinds of stories. And so here we'll take a look at a few techniques that AI can help out with, such as automatic editing, taking video that they've shot in the field, merging that together with the script, and then being able to create a meaningful edit ahead of time. So the journalist just needs to come in here and make small changes as needed. Object tracking, to be able to keep the focus point in the video when you're going to different kinds of multi-platform productions. Facial recognition. Sky News is going to be talking about how they use facial recognition for the royal wedding a little bit later. But this is, again, tools to help the journalist be able to figure out who is in that image, who is in that video. This may be an important person that I don't know about that's going to add to my story. And then automatic subtitling just is going to help save time. And at the same time, while helping out the journalist tell their stories, we're also helping out the productions. So by using AI in the cloud, or to understand what cloud resources are available, we can then start having the AI understand when more resources are needed, start spinning up those systems, and when they're done, spin them back down again, as an automatic way to make sure that your production always has the resources that are needed. But finally, though, AI is kind of a buzz term today. I mean, it is a very, very important technology. But in the end, it's going to become a commodity. It's just going to be something that we take for granted in every piece of software that's developed in the future. So while we're talking about AI quite a lot this year and for the next few years, in 10 years' time, it's just going to be in everything. And it's just going to be just as common as everything else we deal with in the internet. So finally, we need to be able to reach our market. Media productions are becoming more complex, and there are more channels on the market, there are more media companies out there, and we need to be able to diversify ourselves. We need to be able to stand out, to make money, to use the technology that we have, to automate our productions, and just tell engaging stories, because that's why we're here, is to tell those stories. Now, we're going to be looking at how all of these different technologies are coming together and really getting started here at Vizrt Days over the next 2 days. So I really hope you enjoy the presentations that are coming up, and thank you, everybody.